Welcome to Keto Meals and Recipes.com. Today I will be demonstrating how to make my Keto Chicken Enchilada Casserole. This is a very budget-friendly keto recipe that is also a one-pot meal and is very easy to make. And the best part is, with this Keto Enchilada Casserole, you do not have to sacrifice taste or quality. And this version is a great prep ahead and freezer meal that you can portion out and freeze according to how many servings you need per meal. And the very last thing I want to mention before going on is that this is also a really great recipe if you have any leftover roast chicken or other chicken parts. While I'm making the chicken enchilada casserole, I will demonstrate the step-by-step process and give you suggestions that may help you. As well, I will explain about freezing and reheating. So let's get started. The macronutrient ratio for this keto chicken enchilada casserole is 1.6 to 1 with 9.4 grams of total carbs, but don't worry, there's 3.5 grams of soluble fiber, resulting in 5.9 grams of net carbs per generous serving. To simplify this video and recipe, I will be using two ingredients that you can either do as prep ahead or use leftovers from a previous day, especially if you have made a roast chicken. First, you will need to make one of my keto tortilla or nacho chip recipes. I have several tortilla and nacho chip recipes, but today I will be using the Pita two-way recipe. And if you want to use my recipes, which I will encourage you if you want the same macros, all recipes I mention in this video, including the printable written form of this recipe, will be provided in the description box. After making my tortillas, which by the way I made the other day, so these are leftovers, I'm using my pizza cutter to cut this tortilla into 8 wedges. And you will need 2 tortillas for best results. Because I want these wedges to be nice and crispy, like nacho chips, to crisp the wedges I just preheat the pan on medium-high heat and then dry fry them until they're golden brown. Flip them over and fry the other side until it too is golden brown, and at this point the tortillas or nacho chips are quite nice and crispy. When you're all done frying them, put the chips in a plate and set them aside until needed. Also, as I said, you'll need some pre-cooked chicken. The best thing is to either buy a rotisserie chicken or you can make my roast chicken 2-ingredient recipe. By buying or making a full oven roasted chicken, depending on your family, of course, you will have several meals from this one chicken. And as I said, you can use the leftovers to make this chicken enchilada casserole. But if you don't want to buy or make a whole chicken, you can pan fry or oven roast a chicken breast or chicken thighs. As you can see, I did not have a roast chicken for this video, so I'm going to pan fry my chicken breast. This recipe is really versatile because you can either use breast or chicken thigh or a combination, and actually the way that I usually make it when I have leftover chicken. Okay, so cut the breast or whatever part of the chicken you're using into very small cubes. To get even fork-sized pieces, first cut long strips like this, then cut across the strips to make small cubes. The important thing is to make the cubes about the same size. Then, when you have cubed your chicken, just place the meat into a bowl and set that aside for a moment. And the next step is to make the enchilada sauce. The link for some of the ingredients I'm showing here will be in the description below. Before getting into the recipe, I would also like to mention that I would highly recommend you use very sharp or old cheddar. Old and hard cheeses have the lowest carbs and in this case are the most flavorful for this recipe. And I'm also going to be using a full-fat mozzarella cheese. To make my salsa verde, I first cut up my red bell pepper, aka capsicum, into very small even pieces and throw it into my bowl. Also dice your onion into very small pieces. These very small pieces will reduce very nicely in the sauce. And I'm also going to use fresh jalapenos, which I first cut in half and then remove the seeds, because although I like it nice and spicy, I find with the seeds it's just a little bit too hot for me. But if you like your enchilada really hot, do leave the seeds in. That's up to you. The next thing is to cut the jalapeno into thin strips and then cut each of the thin strips into very tiny little pieces. This will result in a more even distribution of the jalapeno pieces within the sauce. To make the salsa, pour your oil into your skillet or Dutch oven or wok, which you've set on medium heat, and when your oil starts to sizzle, drop in your diced onions, your bell peppers, and jalapenos, and saute until the onions become translucent and fragrant. When your onions are done, add the black olives and sprinkle the grated garlic. To season this, I also add dried herbs, the cumin, chipotle powder, and dried oregano. Now it's time to add the salt and just toss everything to combine. Pour in your salsa verde, or also known as tomatillo salsa. By the way, if you're using a store-bought salsa, please read the label very carefully and look for ingredients that you may not want, such as sugar or other sweeteners. There were many different brands of tomatillo or salsa verde in my grocery store, but I found that the Mexican brand was the best because it didn't have a lot of extra unnecessary ingredients, such as sugar. After adding my green tomatillo salsa, I also added the water. At this point, reduce the heat to low so you have a gentle simmer and cook uncovered for about 10 minutes. And as it's cooking, remember to stir every once in a while. You'll notice that your sauce will thicken as the water evaporates. After this cooking time, turn off the heat and add the chopped fresh cilantro leaves and toss to combine. That's all there is to making the enchilada sauce. And the next step is to assemble the casserole, which is very easy. Just pour your sauce into your oven-safe casserole dish and use your spatula to spread out the enchilada sauce. Next, distribute the cubed chicken pieces evenly over the salsa. Then fold to coat the chicken with the salsa. I forgot to mention, you should preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 200 degrees Celsius. Okay, back to the casserole. It's now time to add my grated sharp cheddar, and on top of that, the layer of my grated mozzarella. Remember, you're reserving a portion of each of these cheeses for the topping, so don't use it all up in this step. The next step is to place your nachos or tortilla chips that you've made on top of the cheese in a way that you cover the entire surface. Then finish this prep by using the rest of your cheddar, and lastly, topping everything with the mozzarella. Because we're putting this into a hot oven, and to prevent the cheese from burning, but still get that nice crispy crust, I like to use a sheet of aluminum foil, shiny side down, and make a V tent so that my aluminum foil is not actually touching the cheese. Now that this is all prepped, place your casserole into the middle position of your preheated oven and bake for 15 minutes. Remove your aluminum foil and bake for another 5 minutes to crisp up the cheese. Now that my casserole is done, just remove it from the oven. First, I'm going to let it rest and cool for about 5 minutes. And then I will cut the casserole in half lengthwise, and then each length will be cut into 3 equal sections along its width. This is how I get 6 very generous equal portions. You can now serve this amazing keto chicken enchilada casserole nice and hot and with a simple side salad like this. In this salad, I'm simply using romaine lettuce, adding a few of the leftover tomato pieces, a drizzle of olive oil, and some apple cider vinegar. You don't need anything else. The enchilada is very flavorful. And here you are. Now you have a wonderful, very tasty, but still very budget-friendly recipe. As I mentioned earlier in the video, if you're making this casserole for just 1 or 2 people and you think that this is way too much for you, you can take the leftovers, let them cool a bit, and place them into freezer-safe containers according to how many servings you need, 1 or 2, depending on the people you're feeding. But remember to date and label your freezer container so you know what's inside. And this freezer meal will stay perfectly well for several months. There's 2 ways that you can reheat this. You can take it frozen, make sure that it's in an oven-safe container, and put it into your preheated oven at 375 until it's nice and warm. Or you can take it out of the freezer, let it thaw overnight, and then reheat it in your preheated oven, again at 375 until it's the right temperature for you. Or lastly, or after it's thawed, you can also microwave it to heat it up. I hope that you will try and enjoy this versatile recipe. And if you like my channel and find the recipes I provide useful, I'd really appreciate it if you would support me by subscribing. And very importantly, please turn on the notification bell so you will be alerted when I post my next video. Thank you very much for watching my video, and I hope to see you next time. Cheers!